Welcome to this comprehensive exploration of the 1991 2 Rand coin of South Africa, a numismatic piece that, while often overlooked in global circles, holds immense cultural and historical weight within the Southern African context. In this deep dive, we'll trace its origins, analyze its design and composition, understand its place in South Africa's evolving economy, and explore how its value has fluctuated over the decades. By the end of this script, collectors, historians, and enthusiasts alike will appreciate not just the metallic surface of the coin, but the intricate story it tells, a story shaped by transition, symbolism, and South Africa's complex journey into democracy. 1. The historical context. South Africa in 1991. To fully grasp the significance of the 1991 2 Rand coin, we must first understand the country's political and social environment during that year. South Africa was at the cusp of monumental change. After decades of apartheid, a system of institutionalized racial segregation, 1991 marked a turning point. President F.W. de Klerk had already initiated reforms in 1990. In 1991, the last of the apartheid laws were repealed. Nelson Mandela had been released from prison just the year before, in 1990. There was a cautious sense of hope, a move toward reconciliation, and anticipation for the country's first multiracial elections, which would eventually take place in 1994. This atmosphere of transformation bled into every aspect of life, including the symbols the country produced, such as its currency. 2. The design of the 1991 2 Rand coin. Obverse front of design. Portrait. The coin features a portrait of Jan van Riebeeck, the Dutch colonial administrator who arrived at the Cape of Good Hope in 1652. For decades, his image was used to represent the Afrikaner legacy of settlement. Text. It bears the name Suid-Afrika in South Africa, along with the mint year, 1991. Design artist Jan van Riebeeck's portrait design was by Coert Steenberg, a prominent South African sculptor-verse back design. Symbol. A majestic kudu, one of Africa's most iconic antelope species, is portrayed. Value. The numeral 2 and the word Rand are inscribed. Artistry. The design symbolizes African wildlife and natural heritage. 3. Technical specifications. 4. Mintage figure S. The South African Mint produced over 20 million 2 Rand coins in 1991. While this does not make the coin rare in circulation terms, its condition and context add significant value in the eyes of collectors. Special proof or mint sets were also released in limited quantities for collectors, typically with superior striking quality and packaging. 5. Numismatic value over time. The 1991 2 Rand coin's value as legal tender has remained static. It's worth 2 South African Rand. However, its collector value, numismatic value, has experienced fluctuations depending on condition and rarity. To 2000s. For the first decade after its release, the coin remained in general circulation. Worn versions were common, and few were hoarded as collectibles. Interest in South African coins grew with the increasing global fascination with Mandela-era memorabilia. Coins in mint state MS-60 or higher started fetching R50 to R200 on local online marketplaces. 2020 to 2025. The coin's value depends heavily on its grade. Circulated R2 to R10. Uncirculated MS-63 or higher. R100 to R250 proof coins, R300 to R500 depending on packaging and demon. Some international collectors list pristine examples on auction platforms for $10 to $30 USD, depending on presentation and authentication. 6. Grading and collector condition. Understanding coin grading is crucial when evaluating the 1991 2 Rand coin. Good G heavy wear, little detail. Minimal collector value. Fine moderate wear, legends visible, modest interest. Very fine VF, light wear, increasingly collectible. Extra fine XF, sharp detail, often sought after. Mint state MS-60 no wear, highest demand. Proof, specially struck for collectors, mirror-like surfaces, most valuable. 7. Cultural significance. Symbolism of Jan van Riebeeck. Jan van Riebeeck was once celebrated as the founder of European settlement in South Africa. However, with the country's transition into democracy, his legacy became more controversial. His presence on currency gradually faded, replaced by more inclusive icons, wildlife, and national identity. The kudu on the reverse remains a neutral yet proud symbol of African beauty and biodiversity. Wildlife imagery remains common on South African coinage, symbolizing the continent's unique environment. 8. Shift in coin design after 1991. Following the end of apartheid and the 1994 democratic elections, the South African Mint began redesigning currency to reflect the new national identity. By 1994, Nelson Mandela became president. New coins and banknotes were introduced, emphasizing unit. The 2 Rand coin was introduced as part of South Africa's decimal coinage system and has undergone several design changes since its first release in 1989. However, the 1991 issue is of particular interest due to the transition phase the South African Mint was undergoing, both in terms of technological upgrades and shifts in design standards. Why focus on errors? Because error coins are like hidden treasures, rare, often unintentional, and frequently worth far more than their face value. Some collectors have reported discovering 1991 2 Rand coins with double strikes, off-center images, missing inscriptions, and even planchet anomalies, each telling its own unique story of minting mishaps and quality control slip-ups. In this script, we'll explore the origins of the 2 Rand coin, the most notable errors found in the 1991 issue, the technical reasons behind these minting anomalies, their current market value, and tips on how to spot a genuine error coin. Let's begin our journey into the world of South African numismatics. Section 1. Historical background of the 2 Rand coin, 500 words. The 2 Rand coin was first introduced in 1989. Replacing the 2 Rand banknote which had been circulating since the 1960s. As part of South Africa's efforts to modernize its currency system and reduce costs associated with banknote production, the South African Reserve Bank and the South African Mint collaborated to create a durable, secure coin for everyday use. The original 2 Rand coin featured a black wildebeest, Kanosheitsnu, a robust symbol of African wildlife, and bore the portrait of then-State President F.W. de Klerk on the obverse. However, by 1991, the coin was updated to feature the coat of arms of South Africa, reflecting political shifts and a growing desire to move toward a post-apartheid national identity. The coin specifications in 1991 included diameter, 23 millimeters, weight, 5.5 grams, composition, nickel-plated copper, edge, reeded. The 1991 release was part of a broader effort to streamline coin production with new dies, improved machinery, and higher minting speeds. But with these changes came new challenges. As the Mint ramped up production, certain coins slipped through with visible errors, leading to a small but fascinating number of collectible anomalies. Section 2. Types of errors found on the 1991 2 Rand coin. 1,500 words. Now let's dive into the different types of minting errors reported on the 1991 2 Rand coin. Some of these errors are exceptionally rare and fetch high prices on the collector market. 1. Double strike errors. One of the most dramatic errors involves the double strike, where a coin is struck more than once by the die without being properly ejected between strikes. This results in a coin with overlapping images, giving it a ghostly doubled appearance. On the 1991 2 Rand, such errors often show double outlines of the wildebeest or coat of arms, double date numerals, misaligned reading on the edge. 2. Off-center strikes. In this error, the coin blank planchet is misaligned during striking, resulting in a partial or incomplete image. On 1991 2 Rand coins, these off-center strikes can be especially dramatic, with some coins missing up to 30% of the design. 3. Broad strike errors. A broad strike occurs when the retaining collar fails to hold the planchet during the strike, allowing the metal to spread outward. This leads to a larger, flatter coin with no reading on the edge. Broad strike errors on the 1991-2 Rand are rare and often show a soft, blurry outer rim. 4. Clipped planchet errors. These errors result from irregular cutting of the metal strip used for coin blanks. A clipped planchet has a visible crescent-shaped chunk missing. On the 1991-2 Rand, these clips can vary in size and location. Some are minor, while others cut into key design elements like the wildebeest's head or the date. 5. Die cracks and cuds. Die cracks happen when the die itself becomes worn or damaged. These cracks are transferred to the coin during striking and appear as raised lines on the surface. A cud is a more severe form. A chunk of the die breaks off, leaving a blob-like impression on the coin. 1991. 2 Rand coins have been found with both die cracks along the rim and cuds near the date or on the wildebeest's body. 6. Missing details. Weak strikes. Sometimes the dies don't apply enough pressure, resulting in coins with weak or missing details. Collectors have reported 1991 coins with indistinct coat of arms, faint text, or barely visible dates. These are often due to worn dies or low striking pressure. 7. Planchet errors lamination, wrong metal. Planchet errors relate to the blank metal disc used before the coin is struck. These include lamination errors, where a layer of metal peels or flakes off. Wrong planchet, rare cases where a 2 Rand design is struck on a blank meant for another coin, such as a 1 Rand or even a foreign coin. 8. Rotated die errors, a rotated die error